Welcome back to your Networth's Network. I'm your host, Corey McNabb, and this is a networking style podcast where we bring up special guests. We get to know a little about them, we learn about their business, and see how we can all help each other. My goal in life is to rise to a place of excellence, and I want to bring you with me. So, that being said, let's bring up, if I can focus my camera, our special guest, Mr. Mike Powell. How's it going, Mike?
Doing good. How are you, Corey?
I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, Mike, I know that you're a fellow firefighter, so I got to say, thank you for your service.
Likewise. Thank you as well.
But let's go ahead and give the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So name's Mike Powell. I am a full-time firefighter. I tell people Tampa Bay, Florida, but I was actually born in Clearwater and born and raised, lived here my whole life. Most firefighters, they typically have a second job, and so I've dabbled in a couple different things, and I kept kind of coming back to this whole real estate thing. I got my realtor's license in 2019 and helped a couple new buyers buy their first home, and then family happened, wife, kids, and then COVID happened, so things got a little serious, and then I'm like, hey, this is kind of getting in the way. Let's hang this license up for a little bit, and maybe we can revisit it, down the road. Fast forward a couple years, that I flew by when you have newborns. I was like, it's getting to the point where my wife, who's a nurse, she's kind of working less, and I'm like, okay, I need to start making some money. And I was like, maybe I can just go back into real estate. But then I kind of found, there's multiple ways to make money in real estate. And, as time's always slipping away, I, figured that I actually started enjoying the real estate investment side of it. And then more specifically, the lending side of it. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay, cool. So you started as a realtor, and that was back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So are you able to renew your license at this point?
Yeah.
Or
I've stayed active. I've done there's some stipulations here in Florida where you have to do a certain amount of continuing education within, I can't remember if it's the first year or two. And there's a sweet spot where if you don't do it the first time, they can revoke your license and you'd have to go through the whole process again, take the course, pass the test. But as long as you do that, then you're kind of locked in, and then you can only become involuntary inactive, but basically pay a fee and do the CMEs, but they can't revoke your license. I've stayed active on it, done all my CMEs, and so I'm voluntarily inactive right now. So all I have to do is just hang my license up with a brokerage and pay the fees to join. For us would be the Greater Tampa Realtors, the GTR, I believe. So yeah, everything's still active. In terms of my standing with the license, it's just a matter of whether I want to activate it and pay the fee or not.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you decided to get into lending. What brought you to that decision?
Yeah. So when I was circling back and trying to figure out what I was going to do, for my side hustle, I kept, going back and like, okay, I can just, obviously the state of the market these past couple of years has been, kind of wild. And so I was like, maybe I'll just do some fix and flips. I've always wanted to be a fix and flipper, or I guess the end goal would be build a portfolio. But I figured starting off with a fix and flipping would be a way to gain my knowledge. And then, so as I, did some research and was, going through, read the Burr book, and I realized that I don't have a team. I don't have the know-how. I don't have all that. And so I was like, okay, seems highly risky to jump into something and hemorrhage money and try to pick up the pieces to maybe win. So as I kind of kept going down the path of like what would fit my timeline with my young boys and firefighting, and I found Pace Morby's Gator community, and I'm like, okay, well, if I have some money sitting aside maybe I could take a piece of somebody else's deal. Maybe I can help somebody else do a fix and flip. And through that, I can learn transactions. Because even though I said I'm a realtor and, or licensed, I definitely had imposter syndrome. I've always been the fitness guy, the firefighter guy, and so putting on a button down shirt and saying this is the perfect house for you. It didn't really, it didn't feel like that was truly my identity, especially since my only experience was buying my own primary residence. So it's like, how can I go out here and pretend to be an expert when I wasn't? And so through this method of taking a piece of other people's transactions, I was like, well, I can learn through osmosis. I'm part of it. I can meet title companies, talk to escrow officers, work with other investors, and then you start realizing like there's a lot of knowledgeable investors out there, and if I can start learning from them, and now I've been instead of me helping two people buy a house like I did before, I've been in 5 deals in the last few months, and so um, the knowledge has been huge, and that's kind of what drove me to do this. And then I still have the option to go and activate my license if I want to, but basically with the time commitments I had on other things, I could just I don't have to find the deal. I don't have to organize contractors. I don't have to, all that stuff's kind of taken care of by the investor. I can simply, bring my money to the table. And, if they need advice or my experience, which, I've been working with wholesalers, some of them are brand new. They've never been part of a transaction before. I can offer my level of expertise, to them as well, which I love doing because I think down to who I am is just basically being a helper.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that was one of the reasons I became a firefighter, was to help people. So,
Yeah.
like, I think a lot of firefighters have that background, then you get in the industry for a while and you're not necessarily that way anymore, but that happens. So, okay, so the last few months you've been in 5 deals.
Yeah.
So I know you said you joined Pace Morby's Gator community.
Mm-hmm.
So are you doing EMD deals, or what kind of lending are you focusing
Yeah.
on?
So there's all types of lending, right? And to simplify it, I guess the best way to think is like there's EMD transactional lending where the funds will stay in escrow, and then there's PML or private money lending where the funds are supposed to leave escrow because they're being used to buy construction material, pay for contractors, all that stuff. My goal, I do both. So, being kind of relatively new, I started off really trying to hammer the EMD, which I still would love to grow that part of my business. My goal is to have funds set aside for each type of lending because each of them have their pros and cons, right? And so I've done a couple EMD lending on with some new wholesalers, but kind of basically what I have, the low hanging fruit for me has been the private money lending, which would be just funds are leaving escrow to purchase the property, come in for like a down payment, maybe holding costs, maybe construction and stuff like that. So I would say 2 of the deals have been EMD, and then 5, or actually I think it's 6 deals now. 4 of them have been private money lending.
Gotcha. Okay. And are you open to other lending? Like, would you be open to being a private money partner or something
Yeah.
like?
So that's kind of one of those things I've been tossing around. I think it does identify with my personality and who I want to be. The issue I have right now, because I think as I want to grow and work with people higher level than me and operators, because if my end goal is to be a buy and hold investor, I would need to know how to be an operator, right? And so private money partnering with somebody, I think, is a great opportunity because um, I could learn from them, right? The caveat with that is as my business is growing, I'm able to earn a pretty aggressive return on my short-term lending. And so as I build my short-term lending business and return and kind of grow my capital, that seems to be working. And if I go into this, hey, I can park my money into this as a PMP, that money's tied up And so then it's like I'm risking my return for knowledge, and then I have to still kind of figure that out of like, hey, if I put 60 grand into this deal with you as a partner, I'm going to earn $500 a month. But how much is the knowledge I'm gaining? And that's still something I haven't really kind of. It's hard to pencil that out, right? And so it's like I could put that $60,000 in short term and earn 30%, and then get paid out and just kind of rinse and repeat that. So it's like, okay, what's it worth to me? I think eventually I'll definitely be doing more private money partners, but as of right now, I'd like to focus on the EMD and short term PML.
Gotcha. So that's interesting because I was about to ask, and you kind of hinted at a few things. So basically, what I want to ask is, we kind of know what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to know is a couple things. One, why are you really in real estate?
Mm-hmm.
AKA, like, what's your purpose? What's your end of life
Mm-hmm.
goal, I would say. And
Mm-hmm.
then what are the next few steps you see to get there?
Yeah. So I think the reason I'm in real estate is, and I'll be honest. So I love the firefighting thing, and I don't know, your experience as well, but to me they're like golden handcuffs. Like they make it just sweet enough to where I have a good life with my family. I can take care of my family and my kids. Um, but just barely, right? And so, she's slowly starting to work less because she's got to take care of the family, and things, the monthly, it hard to make ends meet. So some guys will work a ton of overtime, or they have to have that second job. Not to mention, every third day I'm sleeping in a different bed, gone for 24 hours, and um, so I'm in real estate actually to hopefully eventually leave the fire department. I've been there for 8 years. At the 10-year mark, I'm 100% invested, so that would be like the minimum term I'm gonna do. But if it takes me the next 5 years, then that's still a win because I'm not champion to say I'm gonna spend the next 30 years here. So real estate is actually my I feel like it's my way out of the rat race, kind of. We're in contract negotiations right now, and people like, excuse me, like, oh, maybe hopefully we get a 5% raise, and it's like, and in the grand scheme of things, a 5% raise is great to most, people, but it's like, it still just does not seem enough. And I'm not sure your experience, but in real estate, there seems to be a lot of money going around, and there's a lot of opportunity. And so I'm in real estate actually to enhance my life, my family's life, and then kind of something that Pace touches on is, taking care of family is like simple. That's supposed to be, easy stuff,
Bare minimum.
and bare minimum. And so if I can elevate myself, be more comfortable, then I can elevate the people around me. And that's kind of what I would really love to do. And I can already see the shift at work. At first guys were like, "You're crazy, Mike. You would be stupid to ever leave this. It's so secure. You're wild to walk away from a pension." And then it's like, guys like, "Hey, what do you got going on over there? How do I get a piece of that? Are you looking for a partner?" And you see the shift of like, oh, these guys, and they're great guys. They're like, man, maybe he's onto something because you see it time and time again where guys do 30 years and they can't afford to retire, or they got to go, and then Pace has even said, like, or someone said at one of the Squad Up Summit, was like, you don't retire from a life you love. And so it's like, I think with real estate, I can have a great work life integration. It's not a work life balance. Like you have to have, every third day, my wife's operating this house without me, you know? And so then with real estate, I can be here. We can go on trips together and I can still do real estate, So I think that answered the one question. You might have to follow up with the other ones again, just because I forgot them.
Yeah, no. So I was wanting to know kind of what your goal was to get to, and then what steps you feel you need to take in order to get there.
Yeah. So I think since the firefighting thing is so secure, it is going to be a giant leap of, you know, I'm safe and secure here. Now I'm ready to retire and leave. And I really have to kind of self evaluate. And is it a dollar amount? Is there a savings amount? What would it take to get me there? And I don't currently have the answer to that. But the steps to get there is, I think, doing stuff like this. I'm sure you've heard, multiple people say like you're one relationship from your life, changing forever. And meeting more people and networking, people can really elevate you. And there's this philosophy of like pluses, minuses, and equals. And so like, and what that means is like, there's people that I'm above that I can bring them up to me. They're negatives. They don't know as much, or maybe I'm one step ahead of them. Well, I can bring them up to me, right? Then there's equals where like they're kind of in the same boat as you. You can kind of bounce things off back and forth. But then there's pluses as well. And the more relationships you make, you can kind of, hey, where are these people at? And do I need to help them get up to speed with me? Or maybe they're going to bring me up to them. And so by networking and meeting people, I think that's how I get there.
Awesome. Okay. So you want to get to the point where you're comfortable enough that you can leave the fire department. And right now, the best way for you to do that is to network with more people, meet more people.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that one goal of yours was to become a buy and hold investor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me a little about that. What are you thinking for that?
So there's, kind of some people talk about like wholesaling is, now money, fix and flipping is tomorrow money, and then, buy and holds are forever money. Again, and there's different stages to that, and focusing on one business to grow it. I would love to get to the point where my lending business is automated, right? And even now, it's something I'm considering of like, hey, I'm gonna have a tax liability on this income through my business. I need to offset that with some real estate, right? And so with real estate, if you buy and hold, you can write off the depreciation and help kind of reduce your tax burden. So it's kind of one of those things I think is kind of going to naturally happen. It's just at to what scale. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll buy 1 to 3 rentals this year. And, whether I'm acquiring them conventionally or, refinancing through a hard money lender or even subject to, um, yeah, we'll see. But then, there's the thought process of like, why are you trying to buy 3 this year when you could buy 3 this month? So it's like there's people that are just, they're crushing it and they're moving so fast. And so right now I'm like, okay, I'm focusing on the lending. I need to kind of figure out at what speed am I going to transition to my portfolio, and kind of you alluded to the private money partner. Maybe that's it. Maybe my first one doesn't have to be a sole ownership through me. Maybe I can own it a portion with somebody. Um, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, cool. Have you brought up taxes? And so have you read Profit First?
That is something that I have not read yet, and I know a lot of people bring it up. I did. It's definitely
So
on my.
there's Profit First, which is by Mike Michalowicz, which is the main book that gives all the like details into the system for building a business or making your business profitable.
Mhm.
And then there's Profit First for real estate investing.
Mm,
That just kind of more specifies, the types of accounts that you want to have for these. If you're, buying and selling, if you're rentals, that type of thing.
yeah, more like
Definitely
active versus
recommend that.
passive.
Right, right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely
No, it's
recommend reading Profit First because one of the things it talks about is every time you get income, setting a percentage aside for tax.
yeah,
And it's like, you don't touch that money. That is,
right.
in a way, you're stealing that money from the government if you pull from it to pay something else. So what they've found is that people who regularly do that, at come tax time, they'll get their bill and they'll have the money in there
Yeah,
and they'll pay it out. Hey, that's great. They don't have to
yeah.
worry about it anymore.
Yeah,
So
I've seen that. I've seen multiple people talk about it. I'm like, I'm actually completely clueless. So I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of those things like I'll just see people like kind of pass over, like, oh yeah, we use the profit first system and blah blah, blah. And I'm like, God, I keep hearing that. I gotta look into that. So I'll definitely read the book. I'm on a book reading spree. I went. I'm a bit embarrassed to say this, but I went, 30 years of my life without ever reading a book cover to cover. And Pace actually sent me a free book called Limitless, which is actually was a fantastic book, and I read it in January. And I'm like, you know what? My goal is to read a book a month, which to some people they can do it in a week. But, for me, mine's a book a month. And I've already, read 4 books this year. So in this year, I've read more than I've had in my entire life. And I absolutely love it.
What did you read?
So, actually, let me list here. I've read some on like parenting, so like The Whole Brain Child. I read, Pace's book, Wealth Without Cash, and then I'm actually reading, uh, what is it, Building a Story Brand, which was actually they give it. Did you go to Squad Up Summit?
I did.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
they
need
they
to
gave
get
that
that
out
book
to.
though.
Yeah, so they gave that out. So I'm reading that right now. I've got a couple more about like raising capital and stuff like that, but um, I absolutely love it, and I have to set some time aside for it. I do it before work actually, so I get up an extra hour early now, and when the kids are still sleeping, and I read in the mornings, just to kind of help chip away at it.
Yeah. So I didn't start reading until last year.
Mm.
That's when we started 75 Hard for the first time.
Mm.
And so doing that, you got to read 10 pages a day. And so we started doing that. I started reading. And for some reason, a guy who does not read,
Mm.
I chose my first book to be The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, which I don't know if you know that book,
Mm.
but it is hella thick. Um, and I only got
Yeah,
like 3 chapters into it, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. So I
yeah.
switched books. Which then we got the book on 75 Hard and realized that you're not supposed to switch books. You got to read it from cover to cover. So we ended
Yeah,
up restarting, but
well, so this was the first book that I ever, I bought, and like I said, it was for my kids, and I'm like, I take being a father very serious, and I felt so guilty. I made it through like 10 pages, and I never picked it back up, and I was like, just life was happening. I'm like, I'm doing great. My kids are, beautiful, well behaved kids, but deep down, I'm like, I need to do it. Well, it wasn't until, like I said, I read this book, The Limitless, which is pretty. I made it through all this, and as soon as I got done with that, I picked this one back up and I read it in a week. So it was kind of crazy to me that like I had this for 6 months and read 10 pages. But once I read Limitless from Jim Quick, I was so motivated that the next time I read the next book, it was within 1 week. So
so let
it's
me ask
powerful.
you, because I read Limitless in January as well. I was also recipient of one of those books.
Mhm.
Um, do you still read with your finger?
Yeah, I'm hit and miss. So
Uh,
I do. I would say more often than not, I do.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
got me. See, I think I'm on track right now for 2 books a month.
Nice. Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
so, which
Yep.
my wife is insane.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Yeah.
So how long has it been since Squad Up Summit? That
Like maybe
was
2 weeks,
two
maybe.
weeks. In that 2 weeks, and I give her crap for the series that she chose. But in that 2 weeks, she is on the last book of the Twilight series.
Oh, wow.
And they're all like, what, 300, 400 pages,
Yeah.
something like that.
In
Yeah, 2
2 weeks.
weeks. She's gone through, I think this is the fifth or sixth book.
That's
It's
impressive.
ridiculous. So, but yeah, it's great, dude. I definitely recommend Profit First.
Yeah.
Even
No, it's definitely
even if you just listen to the audiobook. So like I read Profit First for real estate investing and then listen to the audiobook for Profit First to get the idea. You can get a
right.
lot of it from Profit First real estate investing, but there are some things he's like, we're using, just like they said in Profit First. And I'm like, I haven't read that, so I don't know what that is.
Right.
Uh, but
Yeah, I do. So I live about an hour away from work. So every third day, I have an hour commute, and that's where I'll usually knock out either past Zooms that I meet, from the community, and then or I'll do an audiobook.
yeah,
So yeah, I try to. It's funny. I got my buddies. They make fun of me because like, oh, I don't watch sports. I just don't. It's not. I played sports when I was in school, but to me, I just can't come. There's too much going on, and I'm too motivated to succeed in life and enhance my life So I don't watch sports. And then they're like, like, what music do you listen to in the car? And I'm like, never listen to music in the car. I don't do it because I have my, earbuds in. I'm listening to something that I can apply to real estate, something that I can apply to lending, something I can apply to mental motivation. And it's so funny. They're like, wow, you're such a nerd. And I'm like, it's just where I'm at. I can't help it.
Yeah. Well, they'll say that stuff now, but just wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, all right, cool. So I feel like I got a good idea of kind of who you are. We're very similar in some things. And basically, I think we have potential. You had mentioned a relationship that could put your life on a new direction. Um, I think there is potential to at least enhance both of our lives that way. Because I'm actually looking to start buying small multifamily.
Mm,
And one of the things I will need is like an equity partner,
mhm.
stuff like that. So if that's something you're interested in, we can definitely, once I get something, um, if you were to invest in a property, um, would it need to be near you, or are you comfortable being remote?
Yeah, ironically, I've only been a part of one Florida deal, and it went that horrible. So, so I actually, no, I've lent in multiple different states, and it does not seem to matter to me.
Gotcha. Okay. Because right now I'm looking to buy in Georgia when it comes to small multifamily, because I'm just north of Atlanta. Um, but then eventually, I'm also open to single family, but only in certain markets that are appreciating higher than the current interest rates.
Hmm.
So right now, that's not in Georgia.
Right, right. And that's kind of something that I was even looking at, because let's face it, most of the sub two properties don't cash flow as long-term rentals, right? That's kind of the whole thing. And I think short-term rental is a good exit strategy, but I don't want to rely on that, especially if you're not in if it's not in the right area. So for me, at least, if it was local, I'm not sure if you're familiar with pad split, but seems to be affordable housing is kind of like this thing where the people are struggling, and people will take a bedroom and pay a premium even just because it's not just because they can afford it versus, I can't live anywhere else. So it's like it's almost a necessity. It's like who would spend, $700 for a room? It's like, well, it's better than their car, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like you still have access to a kitchen and a bathroom. And I think that's kind of growing on the up and up. And that's something that I've kind of just been going over a little bit in my area is pad split, because you can, turn a 3-3 into an 8-3 or something, and so you rent it out each room, and then now you have a property that is cash flowing tremendously, and then you're also protected if you can't fill each room because you have income from the other renters. So it's definitely one of those things that I've uh, been interested in, is either the multifamily or pad split, something where you can kind of generate income through having multiple renters rather than just one long-term rental, and then you have a property that is vacant when you have to swap renters or evict somebody. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation to be had.
Yeah. Now I know a few people that are doing pad splits. So if you decide to get into those, and I can definitely point you in that direction.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, awesome. Before I get into the last few questions I have for you, is there anything else you want to talk about, bring up?
Yeah, so I think one thing I do want to kind of focus on is right now. Well, I guess there's two things. One, I want a day with Pace, so I actually fly out to Arizona next week, and I get to spend, I think it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. with him. And so with him, my goal is to really it basically one of his superpowers is kind of tell you who you are. And I don't know how you've experienced, but through this entrepreneurship, it's been like one giant wave of self-discovery. I'm 31 years old. I have 2 kids and one on the way. I thought I knew who I was, and I'm kind of find out like maybe I don't know who really what makes me tick and what I want to do and for the rest of my life. And it's kind of funny to say that, but it's reality. So with him, I'm going to help him. Hopefully he can help me break it down, set my game plan up going forward, and put me on the path to a faster success rate. And I want to say, I do want to say that I feel like I've already been successful in 6 months, but I think he can really elevate that. But with that, I've been asking people like, hey, I was lucky enough to win a day with pace. Not everyone was. So I would been probing the community, like, if it was you that won, what would you look to get out of it? I don't want to waste this opportunity. I don't want it to be, I want a day with pace. I want to bring it like we want a day with pace. And so anybody, whether it's you, Corey, like if you want to message me or you can answer it now, but like if you went, what would you look to get out from him? If you got eyeball to eyeball time, what would you want to leave that, day from? But like, okay, I knew I took advantage of this day. Do you know the answer to that?
Oh man. Yeah. So I feel I agree with you. This and it's funny because I actually think we've been doing this about the same amount of time. I let more of the shiny object syndrome get ahead of me. Because I had started out in Gator and then joined Sub 2 in October of last year. And it wasn't until I joined Sub 2 that I was like, okay, now I got to start taking action. And now I work for a team where I manage cold callers and stuff like that. So I'm making progress and building skills like I want.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I had the chance to spend a day with Pace, what I would, I guess, hope to get out of it is really having him break down my misbeliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I don't believe I can do these things, but there is obviously a hang up somewhere in that right now I feel like it's not necessarily feasible. And maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
because I'm comparing myself to people like Pace or like the Atlanta leader, Eddie Charger, or like, because I work with the Houston leaders, like those people that are, multiple steps ahead of me. And so I feel like it's just out of reach. But like this morning I had a chat with Brian and Jenna, who they're here in Northeast Georgia as well, and they're only a few steps ahead of me. And after talking to
Mm-hmm.
them, I feel like it's way more feasible. So maybe just
Mm-hmm.
with Pace having him, um, well, now that I think about it, what if I were to ask him what you're saying, hey, tell me about myself type thing? I feel like Pace probably would be like, you already know, just stick with it.
Right.
Right. Instead
Yeah.
of, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Because that's always been my thing is I'll gain all this knowledge. Right. And then I get to the point where I start to take action and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
But yes, I do. I have all the knowledge. I just got to do it.
Right, and that's kind of one of the things and I wanted to join Sub 2, and I likely will just to be part of the community. I think the being part of the community in itself is worth the investment. But one thing I want to prove to myself, and I kind of relate it to fitness, back to fitness, is that I've got crew members like he's overweight. He hires the top trainers. He buys the most expensive food. He does all these things where he's forking out cash. He's got like 3 gym memberships, and as I've known him for 8 years, and he's been the same size for 8 years. And I'm like, okay, he he's trying to buy his fitness, and
Mhm.
you can't. And so I'm like, and I've told him that you gotta stick to a plan. He's constantly jumping this to this fad diet to this fad diet, and he's got zero consistency. He'll go hard for 6 days and then he won't go to the gym for a month, you know. And he's forking out all this money thinking he can buy his fitness. And so my advice to him is just stick to something, and and put in the work. You got to do it. And for me in this, I have shiny object syndrome too, because there's multiple ways, and I feel like, I have the ability to do it all, but I'm like, wait a minute, let's not get lost in the sauce here. I don't want to keep paying for different memberships and subscriptions and relationships and try to buy my success. Do I know enough to be successful right now? Yes, I do. I know I do. So what am I not doing? I'm not taking action. And so same thing with him not losing weight. Does he have enough knowledge or know how to lose the weight? Absolutely. He spent thousands of dollars working with professionals, but he's not taking action. He's not sticking to the diet. He's not going to the gym. And I think that relates huge. And I think that I want to just kind of discuss that with you, because I struggle with that too. I'm like, shiny object, shiny object. It's like, wait a minute. I keep trying to learn. I don't know enough. I'm learning. Do I really not know enough to make money? No, I think I do. And I have. It's just about, I'm more in the scaling aspect of it, and I think that's important for people to realize.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a good point. You saying that, I was sitting there thinking, I have those same thoughts. Oh, do I know enough? Do I know enough? And while technically, yes, I've read all these books, I've learned, watched the videos, I've learned all this stuff, but because I haven't done it, I don't know it.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to know it until I do it.
Right. And I actually just bought another book, and I haven't read it yet, but the title alone kind of puts this point. It's like, you can't teach a kid how to ride a bike at a seminar. And I just got it. I haven't opened it yet, but just that concept in itself, it's like, well, how do you teach them? Well, you teach them in the field. You can't just, read a book on how to ride it and then expect them to know it, right? You have to fail. You have to fall off the bike. You have to learn to balance. And so I think that's people that are at our level, and I would consider us similar. Um, it's about taking that leap, working a little bit uncomfortable, and getting the scars, messing up, recorrecting the bicycle, and in that way, like, you just try to keep pedaling, and eventually, like, okay, I've been coasting for some time now, and I'm moving, and I'm riding, I'm in it, I am an investor, I do own the multifamily, or I have lent out over $100,000 worth of funds this year, so it's like, that is a reality. And so instead of dogging myself saying that, I'm still learning, or I need to learn, well, I'm learning along the way, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's good stuff, man. And congratulations. I didn't know you got the day with pace. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it.
Um, so let's jump into last segment here. Just a few questions. So first off, what made you decide to want to be on the podcast today?
Yeah, I think that goes, well, you reached out to me, and I think I was a little hesitant at first. I said, I'm not ready for that, and you're kind of like, have you ever had a conversation with someone before or something like that? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's right. I need to, because I think I naturally do want to work alone. I think I'm a little bit more naturally an introvert, but once I relax and kind of get into things, I can have conversations. I wanted to come on to meet you, really. I mean, this is our first time really meeting each other. And it goes back to how we started the podcast is, I think your network is your net worth, and the more people that I can connect with and, put myself out there, then the more people that are going to want to work with me. And so that's why I wanted to come on here.
Awesome. Well, then I got to ask the obvious question, which is actually more obvious of an answer. Why aren't we working together? Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah. Kind of just like I said, I think we just met each other. So us learning about each other, and I think it's the beginning of multiple conversations to be had. I think there's an opportunity for us to work together moving forward.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to it as well. So what would you say your strengths are in business or even in your personal life?
This one I do struggle with as a firefighter. I think we're used to wearing many hats, so we're generally good at problem solving and uh, doing everything. So I've had a hard time finding out what my superpower is. I do tend to kind of find bottlenecks. Well, whether you know if there's there's gonna if I can kind of see where the issue's gonna be. That it kind of seems to be a recurring theme where like everyone's just charging along, and I'm like, wait a minute, what about this is going to be a problem, next week, in a year from now, I just was about to fund a $125,000 deal with two other people, and I'm like, I said, stop it. I think the investors are gonna lose money. And they're like, how do you figure? We have the realtor who's the expert in the comp. She provided comps, and there was a team of five. I said, has anybody pulled the comps up? And none of them had.
That's
You
big
know,
red flag right there.
and I'm like, well, I pulled the comps up, and all the comps are double the square footage or new build. This is going to be a bottleneck. We can put our money in and pray that they're right, but I'm not going to put my money in anymore because this is a bad deal. This is going to be a bottleneck that they're not going to be able to sell it for what they think they can, and
Mhm.
the investors are going to end up writing a check at the end of the day. So I think that's kind of one of them good at is. I think I kind of contribute that to bodybuilding. I used to be a bodybuilder, and I could you look in the mirror and not from a vanity standpoint, but it's like, what do I need to work on? Where's the issue? What am I going to get judged on the harshest? And it's like, oh, I need to work on my shoulders. I need to work on my quads. And I could just unapologetically dissect my physique or other people's, because I would do it for other people. And like, this is what you need to do. This is kind of what you need to fix. This is what gives you more symmetry. Same thing with real estate transactions. I'd be like, where's the issue? You're going to run out of money. You're paying too much for construction. That's kind of think where I have found one of my strengths to be at.
Okay. So you might make a good underwriter then.
Yeah, I've tried it. I do like it. But as of right now, it seems to be busy work.
Right.
Um, so I was trying to underwrite other deals for other people, and I'm like, you know what? Not just for free because I was trying to be helpful, but I was getting a lot of requests, and I'm like, you know what? I can't keep. If I'm gonna start having to charge for this if I need
Yeah, dude.
to, but
Everybody needs a good underwriter.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So that's pretty good strength. You're actually the first one to say that as a strength, so that's interesting. I like it. But on the flip side, what are your weaknesses?
So my weakness is such a broad thing. I got plenty of them and plenty of weaknesses.
We can narrow it
Um,
down to like one big one.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of what my major weakness would be. Hmm. I think I was going to make it sound like I have a big ego. I can't think of a weakness of myself. I think right now is
The weakness is I
probably
have no weaknesses.
yeah, no, probably like unapologetically myself. I think like basically in terms of sales and pushing, trying to advertise who I am or my services is just like take it or leave it, and that's not the right way to market yourself, right? Like I am who I am. I have money if you want EMD. I'm not going to go out here and try to convince wholesalers that need email money. And that's a weakness to me because they might need to be educated, right? So, as a realtor, I would never accept an offer with less than 1% EMD, even though it doesn't really matter in the end of the game. It doesn't change anything. It's just one of those things that I was taught, and so it's like you know my weakness is the fact that I'm a poor salesman in terms of like trying to butter people up, and it's like, hey, I have this opportunity. I'm not here to convince you. You can either use my money or not. There's another opportunity down the road, and that's kind of on the fly what I could think of for a weakness.
So that I'm not taking that away from you. If you feel that's a weakness, then that's a weakness. But I think you can change your perspective there because at least the way you described it, it made me think of a quote that I heard a while back. Like, do you know why you don't see commercials for Lamborghinis? It's because their clientele are not sitting on the couch watching TV,
Mm,
right? So having that mentality, I'm not gonna try and upsell you that or convince you that you need my service, but you provide the service so well that they recognize they need the service and they come to you regardless.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
I could see that.
So I mean, yeah, it's up to like what kind of clientele are you trying to get? Do you want the high performers who you don't really need to convince that they need you, or do you want just anybody?
Right.
So
That's a good point.
Well, there you go. Glad I could help a little bit. So that leads us into the last question, which is, what do you need help with that could make you money in the next 30 days?
Yeah, so I think the where I think my focus is right now is there's plenty of people that are using Gator lending or EMD. They want to fund EMD for their deals. If it's because they're doing 5 contracts a month and they don't want to use their own money, um, or even commercial. There's one I was trying to underwrite for commercial lending, like they needed 100K for a commercial EMD. So I think me getting back into that space, because what happens, I put it aside to do the PML, but I want to get back into the EMD space. And I think because, like you said, there are higher levels that they've got money coming in and out. They don't want to have to worry about, do they have 5 grand in their bank account to, put as EMD? Do they have the 10 grand, or they have 5 contracts that need 5 grand? And so I think wholesalers, or commercial wholesalers that understand the value of using EMD lending, and say, hey, I know Mike's got the funds sitting aside for me. He can fund fast. He's got a system. It's easy. I don't have to think about it. And I think me partnering with those guys is what's really going to help us both win.
Gotcha. So if you're watching this and you're a high performer, wholesaler, fix and flipper, does it matter?
It doesn't matter. The fix flip's hard just because if they're going to be closing on the property, then my EMD isn't as secure because it almost becomes a PML. So
Okay.
wholesalers typically bring in an end buyer at the end that would cover my EMD, and therefore, if the deal, you go past due diligence, the deal blows up, I get my money back. If it's a fix and flipper, they back out, and the seller might want that EMD. It puts it, the fix and flipper is going to have to honor that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So typically
So
wholesaler.
mainly wholesalers.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a high performer and you just got so many contracts coming in, you're like, oh crap, do I have the money for this EMD for this contract? Don't worry about it. My boy Mike's got you. All right. Reach out to him. Speaking of which, I see you've got your Instagram there. Is there
Yep.
another place that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, my website, it's called powellhomeventures.com. You can become a funding partner. We can jump on deals together. If you need financing, if you need EMD lending, there's links. You can click the links on there and you can just fill out the form.
Awesome. So reach out to Mike. If you got problems, he'll solve it. He'll Powell through them. That wasn't very good. Oh well. Well, awesome, Mike. That's all I got for you, buddy. I really appreciate you hanging out
Yeah,
with me.
thanks, Corey. No, this has been awesome.
So that's awesome, man. We'll definitely have to keep in touch and see how we can do more business together. And yeah, I look forward to it.
Likewise.
And good luck. Let me know how your day with Pace goes. When are you leaving out?
So I fly out Tuesday. The meeting's on Wednesday.
Okay, cool.
So is that the 14th and 15th, I believe?
Nice.
Something like that.
That's exciting, dude.
Dude, I'm stoked. Definitely nervous, but hey, everything happens for a reason, and I'm really trying to use this as to launch my business forward.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's good, man. I'm gonna go ahead and send you back and close this thing up. All right.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you. Well, guys, that's our show. That was Mike Powell. He is the Powell behind your deal. I got to stop with that. Anyways, I thought his information was great. He's a fellow first responder, so got to give him some love. And I can see he's going to go big in this realm. So I'm excited to know him, excited to help him out, and you should be too. You should reach out to him. I'll throw his website up one more time. Boom, go check it out. Become a funding partner, or if you got deals, send it to him. Let's get these things going. Get everybody in win-win situations. So with that being said, if you like the show, like and subscribe this video. Come back next week. If you didn't like the show, don't come back, or do. Maybe you'll like next show. Whatever. It's cool. Put comments down below. Anything you like, didn't like, want to see more of, don't want to see more of. If I should change my shirt, if I should get a new camera, because apparently I'm blurry most of the time. It's more focused on this guy. But yeah, whatever. I might look at it, might not. Actually, I'll probably look at it, but I might not respond. Or I might. So you never know. That being said, until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful day.